Season 7, Episode 2
I love it when you say Season 7.
of the Absolute Worldie Football Podcast. European Championship Special, Groups C and D.
C and D.
Welcome back, listener.
How are you? Did you listen to our first episode? If you didn't, go back and listen to it.
Yeah, you should probably... Joel's very keen for you to listen to them in alphabetical of group orders.
Yes, it's important. It's not arbitrary in the slightest. Well, to be fair, is the reason to listen to it in alphabetical order. So if you got to like halfway through the first episode and then stopped and then started again, is because the games do start in alphabetical order, Carl. Group A plays first, then Group B, then Group C, and so on.
That's true, but I imagine some of our listeners will be like, oh, which group are England in? Oh, I'll start with that one.
Well, listener, if you stay tuned, halfway through this episode, we will switch to be talking about the group that England are in. And if that is all you care about, I suggest you fast forward to about half an hour in.
That's right, it's the Absolute Worldie Football Podcast European Championship Specials 2020/2021.
It's confusing. How are you, Kyle?
I'm good, I've had a good day. I'm absolutely been looking forward to getting back in here in your wonderful studio. Joel's got a new studio at Worldie HQ.
It's just full of plants.
I feel like we're in...
It's lockdown. It's very lockdowny, isn't it? Just so many plants in the studio.
It's like Cluedo, where someone gets murdered in a greenhouse.
Of all of the players that we discussed in episode 1, who is the most likely player to get murdered in a greenhouse?
Artem Zubia. It was Artem Zuba in the greenhouse with the lead piping.
I mean, he's probably most likely to be the murderer, true. Or maybe he murdered himself.
But yeah, I've been looking forward to it. How have you been today?
I've been very well. I likewise have been looking forward to it. I've got some pearls to deliver. Do you think the listener needs a reminder of the categories that we are giving them in these episodes?
Boy, do they. Let's start.
You go for it.
Okay, the factoid category is Euro Don't Say.
You don't say.
It's so hard to do, because what you want to say is, you don't say. But it's hard to do that with a row in the middle.
Euro don't say.
That was better.
Thank you. That's a factoid. That's the kind of thing that you might come up with in the pub just to surprise people with a little factoid. It could be about football. It could be about politics. It could just be about the country in general. The second category, of course, is Barnier Stormer, the player who's going to have a barnstormer of a tournament and be the best for that team.
None of them will actually be Michel Barnier. He is not playing in this tournament.
Allegedly.
He's played in another tournament, if you could call Brexit a tournament.
The tournament of Brexit.
I think he probably got to the final and won.
Yeah.
On golden goals.
Politically witty. What's the third category?
It's for the player that's had a bit of a dud. Maybe they have a moment of absolute losing their headness, confusion, catastrophe. It is continental.
And we've thought about it and we've stuck with it even though we're not sure about it.
We can't change it now.
There's too much recorded to change it. If you're offended...
Write in.
Write in. We'd love to hear from you. You can tweet us at Worldie Podcast. You can email us, absoluteworldiepodcast@gmail.com. So, yes, that's the third category. And the final category, of course, is the reason you listen to this podcast. It's You've Pulled.
Which is for the attractive member of the team, of each team, the player that takes our quite literally takes our fancy.
And we will be giving you 24 of the hottest football players around for you to perv over during these European Championships.
I spoke to one of our regular listeners earlier today and told them, oh, we're doing categories again. And they said, oh, who's going to be your Hot to Trotsky this time?
Yeah, someone remembers from 3 years.
Is Hot to Trotsky the best thing we've ever done on this podcast?
I think Hot to Trotsky was the reason that people listened to us to begin with, and probably those listeners that we've kept for the last 3 years have only stayed with us for something as good as Hot to Trotsky, and we've never matched it.
Well, we're matching it now with You've Pulled.
You've pulled.
That sounds more like you're a northern farmer.
You've pulled.
By gum. You've pulled.
Well, listener, let's... Should we crack on with Group C?
Yeah.
Let's do it after this.
Kickball with football, yeah.
Let's see what Group C has to offer. That was disappointing, wasn't it? Let's see what Group C has to... Will be. There you go. Woo! So, Group C. I think there's only one real place to start in Group C, and that is with the biggest team on paper in Group C, and that is, of course, the Oranje. It's the Dutch. The Netherlands team. Holland. They have so many names.
Any more?
Can't think of any off the top of my head. That'll do.
Tulip bunches.
Wow! Cool stuff. So, Kyle, I've got a Euro Don't Say. Don't Say. About Holland, and it's a good way to kick off this second episode because as we, in the last episode, only really mentioned it once, it's COVID related. Holland have become the first team to have to ask a player to leave the squad because of COVID. It was always going to happen. Your face. I'm so happy because I knew you didn't know this. It was always going to happen, wasn't it? I mean, it's inevitable, right? That at least one player was going to have to go into isolation and then they wouldn't be allowed back into the team.
You don't say.
Euro Don't Say. Good enough reason, listener. If you're one of those people, I'm sure we have some of them who are going, why is this tournament happening? It is insane. Well, here's the proof in the pudding. So, it's the first major coronavirus-related withdrawal from the tournament. It is the goalkeeper, Jasper Cillessen.
Oh, he's a big deal.
He was their starting goalkeeper. He's plays for Sevilla in Spain. So he tested positive last week. He's been in isolation, but obviously all the teams are now in their camps. They're now training together. They're now living together. And the Dutch manager, Frank de Boer, has said he missed an important part of the preparation. We don't know how long it will take until he's 100% fit again. I don't want to take any risks in that respect. We're on the eve of European Championships, and I want to be sure. Jasper Cillessen has been told he is not welcome back to the Dutch squad. He's gone.
Have they called up someone else?
So, normally, listener, what happens in a European Championships or a World Cup is when you've named your official squad, you can have some standbys with the World Cup. And normally with the European Championships, they've not done that this time. They've just said, because of COVID, you can replace anyone any time. So they have called someone up. They called up Marco Bizot, who's a 30-year-old AZ Alkmaar goalkeeper who only has one cap. Holland are playing all their group games in Holland.
We covered that last episode.
We did cover that
Amsterdam.
last episode. But their starting goalkeeper won't be there. What does this mean? I mean, what's exciting, I think, for a Euro Don't Say, I mean, I know it shouldn't be exciting, it's really bad, but we are talking about very fit, athletic people, so hopefully there's no, controversies in this statement. But, if this starts happening, if players start testing positive for coronavirus and having to isolate and then leave the tournament, anything could happen. We could be seeing, completely new squads by halfway through.
Couple of thoughts.
Yes, go.
Why aren't these people being vaccinated? That's my first thought.
Well, you can still test positive even after vaccination.
Second thought, since you answered that so succinctly, what do they have to bring in like for like? Well, let's say Harry Kane gets corona. Do we have to bring in another striker, or do we think, it's our chance to bring in Ben Godfrey, that defender that we like?
I guess there's no rule.
Must be a goalkeeper rule. You always have to have 3 goalkeepers.
I've always wondered about that. Why do you always have to have 3 goalkeepers?
I think it's to do with fair play. If you have an injury to a goalkeeper during a game, but then you only need one. But then if they both get injured and you're in the other side of the world, and you have to play a defender in, you'll forever the fans will say, "Oh, well, we've got a plethora of goalkeepers back home."
Yeah. Well, anyway, they have called up another goalkeeper, so that is my Euro Don't Say. It's the first corona victim of the tournament.
Listener, if you're in the pub and Holland are playing, you can say
Jasper Cillessen would have been starting for them in goal, but he got coronavirus and the manager decided it was too much of a risk to bring him back into the team.
I was going to say, you could say, that was a bit cruel on Cillessen.
Nice. That was, I'm not even going to explain that. If you know what that means, then you know what that means, and if you don't, then you don't. So,
Tim Krul is the second goalkeeper for the Netherlands, and one time they brought him on as a sub for a penalty shootout, and they won.
Barnier Stormer, in the absence of injured captain Virgil van Dijk, who will not be playing, a real victim of the tournament being moved back a year. He was the best player in the world this time last year, and now he's not playing. So in his absence, they will be captained by Gigi Wijnaldum. Did play for the same team as Virgil van Dijk until he moved this summer. He plays for Liverpool, obviously. Box-to-box midfielder, runs up and down the pitch, gets up and down the pitch, helps out the defence, helps out the attack. He scores goals, he makes goals. Let's be honest, he's going to make something of himself in this tournament. The time is right for him to prove himself as one of the best midfielders in the world. He will be the Barnier Stormer, and he's got big shoes to fill with Virgil van Dijk taking over the captaincy.
I like how you've gone from suggesting a potential Barnier Stormer to just declaring that, don't worry, listener, they will be the best player.
I think so, yeah.
I think I like your confidence. He's certainly, I mean, if you're about to move on a free transfer, you've still got something to prove, I think, because people will be like, oh, well, obviously you're going to take him, he's free. But he is an absolutely quality all-round player.
Yeah, I think there's hope there. Continental, Frenkie de Jong. Quintessential Dutch footballer. Tall, graceful, superb with the ball at his feet. But he's coming in on the back of a very mixed season, also at Barcelona. He was played in defence quite a few times rather than his favoured midfield position. It never quite seemed right. He'd have a run of good games and then he'd have a very average game. Barcelona themselves had, by their insane standards, a very poor season. He is the midfield linchpin in this Dutch team. They play through him. If he plays as averagely as he's played in the league season, then potentially he will be the spoke in the wheel. He will be the problem player for the Dutch. Frenkie de Jong. That's Frankie, not Frankie.
It's amazing with Barcelona that a poor season that you've just described, they still finished third.
Yeah, well, that's Barcelona. And Kyle, would you like to pull?
Specifically a Dutchman, please.
I will bring up a Dutchman, and I've gone for the quintessential bad boy, Memphis Depay. Goes by just Memphis. I mean, come on.
He's just got the brightest teeth you've ever seen.
Describe the list.
Okay, I will. He's got a double sleeve, tats all up his legs, real thigh on that lad. Yeah, I mean, he's striking, Joel. He's absolutely striking.
Earring. I love the earring.
Memphis, though.
Memphis, what a name.
I mean, you would want to go on a date with a guy called Memphis. Like, if you came across him on Tinder and it was just Memphis, you'd be like, well, I have to find out.
Exactly. I'm just delighted that he goes by just Memphis on the back of his shirt. He doesn't have Depay on the back. It's just Memphis. He's got original bad boy stylings. Enough said.
Can I tell you one thing about Memphis Depay?
Please.
When he was at Manchester United, he was a bit of a flash Harry, shall we say. He was only a teenager, like late teenager. Wayne Rooney, who was sort of becoming an elder statesman in that Man United team, took him to one side and they were like, listen, you've just been bollocked by the manager for being a bit flash and being a bit arrogant. So I suggest tomorrow don't bring the Bentley in. Just come in another car. He turned up in a cowboy hat.
And that was Holland!
Okay, football is good, football is fun, football is there for everyone. I can't really be bothered to follow it properly, but I'll tell you one thing, I prefer it to broccoli.
Kickball with football, yeah.
From the biggest team in the group to the smallest team in the group, and potentially the smallest team in the competition. It's North Macedonia. I could not be more excited that North Macedonia are playing in this competition. It's the first time they've qualified for anything since they became a country in 1991. Frankly, they weren't even a country in 1991. They were a country called Macedonia, former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia.
Yes, FYR.
Yeah, and then they only became North Macedonia in 2019, so they've only really existed for 2 years. It's an amazing story because they're only really here because of yours and I favourite thing, the UEFA Nations League.
It's fun.
It's fun and full of facts. So basically what UEFA did was they decided that the minnows were not getting enough of an opportunity to qualify for the tournament. Part of the expansion to 24 teams. They wanted smaller teams in as well as bigger teams. So they decided that some of the lower teams in the Nations League, or the winning team from the lower bit of the Nations League, could qualify for the European Championships. And welcome, and that's my first bit of my Euro Don't Say, welcome to North Macedonia.
That was really well described. I was worrying about that.
About how I would describe it.
Yeah, because the Nations League is so faffy, but that was well done. It's like having a wild card for Wimbledon.
Yes.
But that player has to be amateur.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's my...
Sorry, North Macedonia.
Yeah, sorry, North Macedonia. If you are North Macedonia listening in, sorry if we're bad-mouthing you. I mean, the fact is they are there technically to make up the numbers. However, that's what everyone thought. But my Euro Don't Say is that they may well punch above their weight. And the evidence for that? Just a little result called Germany 1, North Macedonia 2.
When was that? In your dreams?
Nope, it was just a few months ago.
What?
Yep, North Macedonia beat Germany in a World Cup qualifying match. Don't worry about it, listener. Yes, there's World Cup qualifying happening at the same time as the European Championships. We move on. COVID is the answer to that question. Yes, they beat Germany, Kyle.
In football?
In Germany. Goals from Goran Pandev and Elif Elmas won them the game 2-1. The might of German football, the multi-time World Cup winning team, they beat them. OM North Macedonia. It's an extraordinary thing. The coach said, "These lads have made North Macedonia proud against the winners of 4 World Cup titles and 3 European Championships. We've never beaten a team with so many titles. Now we just have to get some rest as what we have accomplished still hasn't sunk in. Hopefully it has by now and they will be ready for Group C." Would you like to hear their Barnier Stormer?
Yep.
Goran Pandev.
So you mentioned him already. Now, it's interesting because there seems to be a trend at the moment, Joel, of famous footballers and their sons. Now, Goran Pandev, of course, was a famous footballer in the noughties, and this is obviously his son, Goran Jr.
Oh no, Kyle. You couldn't be more wrong.
He's still playing?
He's still playing. He is 37 years old.
Wow.
He is 2 years older than us even.
Now, he is ancient.
Yeah.
He is an old, ragged old donkey of a footballer.
So I think there's an interesting thing here, which I think you'll notice the pattern with my Barnier Stormers and my Continentals. Basically, the oldest person in the team is either going in one of the 2 categories.
Hero or villain.
Yeah. So he's 37 years old. He's a versatile striker, although basically he plays as an attacking midfielder nowadays. He plays a bit deeper because he hasn't got the pace to be up front. He moved to Italy in 2001. Where he won the Champions League with... then he won the Champions League with Inter in 2010. And either side of that, he played brilliantly for Lazio and Napoli. He's arguably the greatest Macedonian footballer of all time. He's their most capped player and leading scorer by a country mile.
Does it count that... Does he keep his caps going from FYR?
Yes, he does.
And before then? No.
No, he didn't play for Yugoslavia. He's not quite that old. But he is old.
He's lived in Italy more than he's lived in Macedonia.
Absolutely. Yes. It's a fairy tale because he's one of those players who, if you know anything about football, listener, you'll have heard of him, you'll have liked him. He was constantly linked to big British clubs for 20 years. It just never happened. I just want him to do well.
The James Nesbitt of football.
Absolutely. Don't understand that reference, but I'm going with it.
Hairline.
With you.
James Nesbitt had a hair transplant. Goran Pandev should have got one by now.
Continental. It's Ezgian Alioski. So, Alioski, you know who he is.
I thought he'd be your EU pulled.
I mean, he's not... Oh, yeah, good point. Damn, I forgot about him. Oh, no. I'm going to look stupid when we get
Let's
there.
ignore that. No, just go back.
Oh, no, it's fine. I've just forgotten that he exists. Oh, I did look at a picture of him, to be honest, when I wrote this down.
He's hot.
So, he's been a revelation for Leeds this season, let's be honest, right? He's been a fundamental feature for a Leeds team that have taken the Premier League by storm in their first year back. But Kyle,
Yes.
what do we all know about Leeds? They run and run and run and run Alioski. Alioski?
Cool.
Sure, thank you. Will he be exhausted? If you've been experiencing the coaching techniques of the infamous Marcelo Bielsa, who demands 3 training sessions a day and a training session on match days as well, will this be too much for him? Will he collapse on the touchline, having run himself into the ground?
You would think he's probably in the top handful of their best players by nature of being a Premier League player.
Yep.
Playing at the top level. They're going to rely on him.
I really hope I'm wrong. I mean, Leeds have a horrible habit of having a go at pundits who say their players are getting tired. So let's hope they don't listen to this.
Do you know what they call him in Leeds?
What?
Gianni Alioski.
Nice, Gianni Alioski. Yeah, it's good. I like it. Well, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's got the energy to burn and he lights up that North Macedonian wing.
Gianni be good.
Thank you very much. EU pulled, which should have been him, and I completely forgot he existed. So instead, it's Elif Elmas. They're not the most... I'll be honest, and I mean this with no disrespect. They're not the most attractive team.
No, that he looks okay there. He's not unattractive.
Go, well, tell the listener what you see.
I see a sort of young man who's got absolutely not an ounce of facial hair, but lovely fringe. He looks about 17 years old, but he is older than that.
Yeah, no.
I'm aware of him from his Napoli days. He's not a bad player.
He's still with Napoli. He's a good player. I'm going to be honest. He's good looking for an extremely baby-faced schoolboy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe look out for him. He will be starting. So unlike my normal you've pulled, you'll actually be able to see him play if you watch a North Macedonia game. That's Elif Elmas.
He looks like one of the younger Peaky Blinder brothers who still looks innocent but has killed.
And that was North Macedonia.
I wanna kick you in the face.
Moving on in Group C.
Moving on up.
Yep, it's Ukraine, Kyle. It's a interesting team. So, Euro don't say. Let's be honest. What do we know about Ukraine in the last few years? War. So Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, are still fighting with Russia.
Are they actively fighting, or is it like a cold one?
There's consistent clashes with Ukrainian forces fighting pro-Russian separatists. It's been going on as a conflict since 2014.
So it's semi-civil.
Yeah. It's apparently it's killed 14,000 people, or at least that's what they say in Kiev. It's had an impact on football. So the Ukrainian Premier League was awash with money and interest. A lot of Brazilian players were playing there. Because of the conflict and because most of the teams who played in the East haven't been able to play in their home grounds and they've had to play thousands and thousands of miles away, kilometers away, there's been a huge kind of exodus of players. Several leading teams have ceased to operate. Shakhtar Donetsk, the perennial champions, the best team in the Ukraine, are in internal exile. So basically, if you have a home base in Russian-occupied eastern Ukraine, you aren't playing football in your home base. So the football in general has suffered hugely, as much as anything else have when you have an internal civil war.
So there's an internal civil war, but there is also an occupied territory.
Essentially, yes. It's very bad. And, you know, it's the original chatbot again. It's Vlad's fault.
He's featured in both of these episodes as well.
Well, he gets about a bit, does Mr. Putin. So, yes, and unfortunately, part of my Euro Don't Say is that politics, and in fact, this is probably the main part of my Euro Don't Say that you'd want to bring up in the pub, politics has crept into the football decision-making because one of the best defenders in recent years, Yaroslav Rakitsky, who's won 54 caps, has not played for the Ukraine or been selected in the squad since 2019 because he joined the Russian side, Zenit St. Petersburg.
Oh.
So if you're in the pub and you're watching Ukraine and they concede a goal, you can say, well, they would probably had a better chance if one of their best defenders hadn't moved to Russia, and because of the internal civil war, that move was considered to be traitorous, and so therefore he wasn't picked.
That's big.
That is big. Yep, as ever, Joel coming in with the hard Euro Don't Says.
I've got some.
What, lighter ones?
No.
Oh, heavy ones to come. Good, I'm glad it's not just me. So, moving quickly on from that, Barnier Stormer. It's Ruslan Malinovsky.
Atalanta.
Yes, 9 goals and 12 assists in all competitions for Atalanta as they've risen to second. They've barely missed their captain, Atalanta, who left their captain from the season before, a guy called Papu Gomez, who departed in January, because Malinovsky has filled the void. He is one of the most highly rated centre midfielders in Europe, and most importantly, apparently has a release clause of £20 million and has been linked with a move to the Premier League to Chelsea, European champions Chelsea. So, potentially what will happen is he'll guide Ukraine through this group, hopefully, and they'll get through. He'll play really, really well. And you then, listener, if you're a listener who watches the EPL, the English Premier League, you'll be seeing him play for Chelsea next season.
Also, listener, if 20 million sounds like a lot to you,
oh yeah,
Joel said that in a way to imply that's a decent bargain.
Yep.
If you can get snapped up for 20 mil and have a good season, then people say, oh, he's cheap at half the price.
Let's not remind ourselves that football is something that we shouldn't care as much about as we do.
So Malinovsky
is their Barnier Stormer. Continental. I am, for the first time, going with the manager. The manager of Ukraine is the best Ukrainian player ever, arguably. Andrei Shevchenko. He scored 235 goals in 497 club games, as well as 48 goals in 111 international games. He played for AC Milan. He played for Chelsea in the Premier League. He played for Dynamo Kiev twice at the start of his career and at the end of his career. When his career ended and he retired, he announced he was going into politics. and he ran for to get a seat in the Ukrainian parliament. He lost and said, well, I'm not going into politics. And he became the assistant manager of Ukraine, and now he's the manager. That's been his trajectory post-football. Failed politician, managed the national team. Insane.
I nearly met him.
Nearly met it. Can I tell you a story, he says. I nearly met him.
Let me tell you the story, though. I was in Georgia.
Yes.
Not the state, the Republic of...
The country.
The country. Yep, we talked about the Black Sea. It's also on the Black Sea. Lovely coastal towns. Anyway, I was there. I had the chance to go to a casino one night with my new friends I'd made, but I decided I didn't really have the pennies, Joel. These were, for want of a better word, wealthy Ukrainian young people, and they were like, oh, I'm not going to do an accent. I nearly did. We're going to casino tonight. You want to come? Oh, I can't really. They met Andriy Shevchenko. He took them out. They went to a restaurant. He was like, "Oh, it's so nice to be with some young people." Like I could have. He was playing. He'd just left Chelsea at the time.
Great. Well, therefore you'd be more emotionally invested in my theory that he nearly got sacked in 2018. He took over in 2016. He nearly got sacked in 2018 because they didn't qualify for the World Cup. They allowed him to continue on. He's never managed at an international tournament. He has no management experience at any other level other than this. I worry that if they're going to fail on anything, it will be tactically, and it will be Shevchenko's fault.
I had no idea he'd been the manager for so long. He is a absolute legend in that part of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely no surprise that they've allowed him to continue in this role for as long as they have.
Yes, but except they nearly sacked him.
But if you're a failed politician, failed international manager, where do you go from there?
It's the only way is down for Shevchenko.
The casino.
Potentially. So, you've pulled. It's Roman Yaramchuk. He's tall. He's got blue eyes. He scores goals. He scored 20 this season. I think he will catch people's eye. I'm not hugely enamoured with this squad in the looks department.
I think he's hot.
Do you?
Yeah, he's got very piercing blue eyes.
His eyes really do stand out.
He looks confident. He's got very broad shoulders. If I saw him on a night out, I'd think he knows how to have a good time.
He's been linked to a whole host of quite famous clubs. So maybe he's been linked to Arsenal. So if people fall for him there and he comes and moves to Arsenal, if you're a listener based in London, you might be able to spot him on a night out in the future.
Roman Yaramchuk.
Roman Yaramchuk.
It's a mouthful, Joel.
And nope, not going to make that joke. That is Ukraine. And to round off Group C, it's Austria. Austria, Kyle. What do you know about Austria?
Austria. I once drove through a service station in Austria. It was all right.
Cool. So my Euro Don't Say is it's a bit like a classic worldie. This it's a famous game from a major international tournament. It's been known as the Disgrace of Gijon. It happened in 1982 in the World Cup, not the European Championships, between West Germany and Austria.
I'm guessing it was in Spain.
It was in Gijon, Spain, indeed, on the 25th of June, 1982. So the match was the last game of Group 2, and the other teams were Algeria and Chile. Those are the 4 teams in the group. The outcome had already been figured out. Algeria were ready to go through with Austria.
Okay.
So Austria and Algeria were in the top 2 positions. The only thing that could stop that was if Germany beat Austria by 1-0 or 2-0. The first 10 minutes, Germany are all over the Austrians. Like a rash on
toast.
Thank you.
Are they enemies or friends?
You're about to find out. So the Germans are really going for it. And they score a goal. The remaining 80 minutes, neither team tried. They passed the ball around. The Austrians were already through.
It was Algeria that lost their place.
Algeria.
And they both knew that.
They knew that. The Austrians, it's why it's the disgrace of Gijon.
That is disgraceful.
The Austrians did not try, and the West Germans, knowing that they'd taken a 1-0 lead, did not need to try either. So all of them just passed the ball around. And it's the reason why now the last game of the group is always simultaneous.
They both kick off at the same time.
Because otherwise people can figure out what result they need and then just play for that result. So if both teams know that they're fine with a draw, they'll just play for a draw.
Imagine being in that stadium, having bought a ticket for that game.
Yep.
Imagine being like 6 years old and being like an absolute ardent fan of Austria.
Apparently the Spanish fans in the crowd were chanting, "Why don't you just kiss?"
Germans and Austrians.
I mean, what a great Euro don't say that is.
That's really cool.
Yeah, horrible.
I'll never forget the disgrace of Gijon.
Or as I called it,
Gijon.
Disgrace of Gijon. Bardier Stormer, it's Marcel Sabitzer. The RB Leipzig. A lot of players that I've picked out over the course of all these groups play for RB Leipzig. Interesting. Anyway, the RB Leipzig midfielder, he's 27. He's established himself as one of the finest all-round attackers in Germany. He's fantastic with free kicks. He's got technical flair. He's got quality. I can see him not just pushing Austria forward out of the group, but getting a big money move this summer.
He's a very good player.
Yep, very exciting. He can play deep. He can play further forward. He can play wide. He's fundamental to the way that Austria play, quick on the counter-attack. I'm excited for him.
Marcel Sabitzer.
Marcel Sabitzer. Continental, controversial, David Alaba. Alaba? I broke them.
David, if he's pronouncing it wrong, we're sorry.
Alaba. Alaba.
Great.
David Alaba might be Austria's best ever player? ? He has controversially left Bayern Munich for Real Madrid this summer. He allowed his contract to run down, kept saying he'd sign a new one. He didn't. In the last couple of days, his father has just come out to defend him because there was a story leaked to the German papers by Bayern Munich saying that he'd asked for 17 million euros a year, and his father has denied that story. Having said that, he has left Bayern Munich. He's signed for Real Madrid. He can play left back, left wing, centre back, centre midfield. He's extraordinary. If you've ever seen him play, listen, you'll know he's just a beautiful football player. However, will those off-pitch distractions get to him, Kyle? 17 million euros. They're calling him greedy. Is he going to be distracted? Is he going to ruin it for Austria? Continental. Who knows?
We'll find out.
Finally, EU've pulled, and I'm afraid it's the first time I'm also going to keep it with one of my players I've already mentioned. It's Sabitzer again. Sabitzer. He looks like an androgynous model with a goatee.
Yeah, he's got a sort of almost a Jackson-esque nose. And I'm talking about post-surgery, which looks odd on a man of his sort of muscular stature. But, I mean, he's not an unimpressive man.
I think if you imagine him without the beard, he is actually, without the beard, he's really, he's got that kind of modelly, androgynous, very sharp-featured, you could imagine him going down a catwalk in a dress.
Sharp is the word.
Yeah, but then as soon as you add the goatee, it becomes even more interesting. I think he's a fascinating person to look at. I look out for him, listener. Listen, if I pulled him on a night out, I would not be going home unhappy. And that, Kyle, is the end of Group C.
Can I just say well done?
Thank you.
I think Group C, and listener, you might have gathered this from the teams involved, is probably the least attractive prospect of a group.
It's pretty dull.
Netherlands, North Macedonia, Austria, and Ukraine. It just bores me saying it.
Well, I extracted some good stuff out of it.
You did. Fantastic stuff. The Netherlands are sort of traditionally sexy football team. The other three, dull as dishwater. Great stuff, Joel. And I just want to say, if you start your career at Dynamo Kiev and you finish your career at Dynamo Kiev, have you made a chicken Kiev sandwich?
And that was Group C.
I wanna kick you in the face.
It is time for Group D. Now, I could start with England, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna keep you waiting, listener, because the actual top team in D is Croatia. We have Croatia, Czech Republic, England, and Scotland. Interesting group. Let's find out why. Croatia. You don't say. So, obviously, a lot of European cities have been hit devastatingly by the pandemic. Zagreb. I want to talk about Zagreb, or Zagreb. not only were they hit by COVID in late March 2020, they were also hit by an earthquake that very same weekend.
Ugh.
An earthquake that was 5.5 on the Richter scale, and over the next 24 hours in the city of Zagreb, there were no less than 57 aftershocks to that earthquake.
Jeez.
The article that I read this in combined the outbreak of the pandemic with this earthquake under a new umbrella title, which I think you're going to love, listener. Crovid-20. Croatia in 2020. COVID-19. Crovid-20. So,
They've left out earthquake.
I don't know. Maybe vid is Croatian for
Crovid
quake.
quake? Crovid quake.
Whatever you want.
Earth Crovid.
So, that is my Euro Don't Say.
That is big. That is big for Croatia. That's tough.
And I want to know, will the national team be leaving tremors in their wake this summer? I'm going to say probably not. Now, you will remember from the World Cup, listener, England and Croatia played each other very, very recently on the national stage. I was in Spain. I missed the game. I sent voice notes to Joel. We put them on the pod. It was very emotional. That was England's last biggest game, really, of import. And they're playing Croatia again.
That's exciting.
Croatia, I would say, are a team lessened in their quality in their squad. England, we'll find out in a bit. I'm going to go with the Continental first.
Please.
Dejan Lovren.
Oh, no. I want him to... At some point, things have got to go right for Dejan Lovren.
Dejan Lovren has... A lot has gone right for him in his career. He's made a lot of money, Joe. Let's not forget, he's a professional footballer at the highest level. He's played in several of the major leagues of Europe, and he's won the Champions League. This man is no slouch. But what he is a bit of an egotist.
Yeah.
Now, after they beat England in that game that I missed, Dejan Lovren said, well, surely now everyone can realise that I'm one of the best defenders in the world. He didn't put this on social media in a sort of like guarded way. He said this in an interview post-match, and obviously he was buzzing. He was about to play in a World Cup final. But rather than say, I just want to take this moment to sort of reflect on how far we've come as a team, or say something like, you know, the manager deserves a lot of credit for getting us here. He has never managed at the highest level in domestic or European football, and yet he's taken our team to the World Cup final. No, he just said, well, now everyone can see I'm one of the best in the world. Me, Dejan Lovren. What do you think of, Joe, when you think of Dejan Lovren?
I think of him falling over, playing for Liverpool, and the ball going over his head and Harry Kane scoring, so...
This is why he's my Continental, because there's lots of football parlance for this, listener. You'll know some of them. There's a player, you can say that he's
He's
right.
always got a mistake in him.
A mistake in him, a rick, a gaff, a howler. These are all defensive or player mistakes that can ruin a game or a team's chances. Dejan Lovren makes at least one a game. I'm thinking he's going to make one in this tournament.
Continental.
Barney Stormer?
Please.
Borna Barisic. Heard of him?
No.
He plays for Rangers. He's a left back. He wasn't in the squad last time when they got to the World Cup final, so he's new to the team, but he's not a young player. He's experienced. Rangers were unbeaten this season, Joel. Teams don't go unbeaten a lot.
No, that's unusual.
He's a defender from that team.
Is he going to bring his unbeatable, indomitable spirit to the Croatian national setup? Is that what you're saying?
I think he's going to start for sure, and I
Amazing.
think that he's going to definitely shore up their defence. And I would also say their games, two of their games are in Hampden Park in Glasgow, so
Right down the road from where he plays his football?
he's going to feel right at home.
What's his name again?
Borna Barisic.
Borna Barisic.
He wasn't born a Barisic. His first name is Borna. You can try rolling the R if you want to.
Borna Barisic.
Oh, an accent there.
Wasn't intentional.
That's our Barney Stormer. And you've pulled.
I've pulled. Who have I pulled?
Duye Kaleta Car.
I'm going to have to hear that again.
Duye?
Duye Kaleta Car.
Yeah, Kaleta dash car. So I don't know where it's double barrel. I don't know what the double barreled system is in Croatia.
No, neither do I. It's an unusual Croatian name.
But here he is.
Oh, Kyle. You've nailed that one. He's incredibly good looking. There's something is clearly a big football move to have a full beard, listener, high cheekbones, smouldering eyes, bit of a floppy fringe, and shave out the sides of your head.
Yeah, the fade beard combo does wonders for your cheekbones,
Turns out. Great shout. Say his name again for the listener.
Duye Kaleta Car.
I will see him later, and if he wants to do it in the car, we can.
That's right. I don't know nothing about football.
Kickball with football, yeah.
Next up, it's the Czechs.
Let's check in with the Czechs.
Next up, let's check in with the Czechs.
Nice.
Thanks, Joel. I came up with that all on myself. Is the Czech Republic or Czechia?
Right.
Now, I don't know about you, Joel, but when I was doing my research for this pod, I love a map.
Yeah.
I think there's an inner cartographer in me bursting to come out. I went straight to Czech Republic to remind myself of where it is, the local rivals, etc. Didn't say Czech Republic. It said Czechia.
I think that's probably how they say it in the Czech Republic.
You're wrong.
Oh, what do they say in the Czech? Oh, in the Czech Republic they say Bohemia.
They have done in the past, but they don't say that anymore. They say Česko.
Oh, wow.
But Czechia has been decided as an international shorthand version of the Czech Republic, only as recently as 2016. Now it's appearing on maps. They're trying to give it as an option so that people like us, when we say the Czech Republic, can now just say Czechia. It's not catching on.
Czechia, mate. I love it.
But I love it. Czechia's better. And you can then say a Czechian rather than saying, oh, he's Czech. I guess Czechia's quicker.
Let's check in with Czechia.
So, yeah, I mean, the progressive football pundits amongst us,
Is that you and me? We are very much the progressive football pundits.
I was thinking more of your sort of Jermaine Genius or maybe even your Owen Hargreaves, but I was hoping someone this summer might start using Czechia. It's unlikely.
Yeah, sure.
Most of these men are in their 50s and they like the old names. So don't expect to hear Czechia very often. But hey, you're in the pub. Maybe it's a 0-0 ball draw with Croatia and Czech Republic. You can say, they'd rather be called Czechia. But I've got a quiz for you.
Oh, thank God. I genuinely thought that